'cause life was right for me. Late to bed, early to rise, sun shining in my eyes. They put me down and cleared my head. These are the words that they said. Oh, hail, hail, MSP. Hang up the highway, follow me. Oh, nothing in this world is free. A trooper's life was made for me. They trained us hard, they trained us long. They trained us right, we fought the wrong. We stick it out through thick and thin. We train to fight, we fight to win.
I think the root of all of us that are in government to protect and serve the citizens. And the best place that starts, of course, is with the Department of Public Safety and the Highway Patrol, men and women that are out there risking their lives each day for people they don't even know. They are at the front lines of public safety.
Blue and gray, blue and gray, proud troopers who patrol our Mississippi highway.
Without public safety, you have nothing. And that goes back, I guess, to the Stone Age, where you had tribes and different people that, you know, without, they band together to protect the clan. And like I say, I've always said, you know, without public safety, everything else comes to a stop.
This song is your salute across the USA. We owe so much to you, blue and gray.
The objectives of the Highway Patrol is to enforce all the traffic laws of the state of Mississippi and to make this state a safer place for the citizens of the state and for the motorists that are traveling to the state to be a safer place to live and to raise a family here in the state of Mississippi.
Interstates and highways, patrolling all the time, so that lives will not be lost. You put your lives on the line.
During the time that I was chief investigator, I was Unit B, we had 4 state troopers that were killed in the line of duty. And that is unusual to have that many, but just I'm pointing out how dangerous the job can be. Each one of them was a result of a traffic stop. And never use the word routine traffic stop. I never did, and it gets me when people say a routine traffic stop. There's no such thing as a routine traffic stop. In 1981, Billy Langham stopped this car on Highway 49 at Collins, and he was killed there. 1983, Danny Nash down at Meadville stopped a vehicle for speeding and probably was not even going to give them a ticket, but it turned out they were 2 escapees from the state of Georgia, and they thought that he would be able to identify them, and of course they'd be going back to prison. So they shot him probably before he even got up to the vehicle. They were caught later, and one of them admitted that the driver just pulled a gun out the window and shot him as he approached the vehicle. Danny was wearing the vest, and the first shot, we believe, hit him in the vest and would not have been fatal, but it turned him around, or he turned around to go back to get some cover, obviously, and when he did, they fired again, and the bullet just happened to hit him right in the back of the head. Of course, that was fatal. In 1983, Steve Gardner. Now, he was not killed immediately after the traffic stop. He stopped this guy, particularly the afternoon that this happened, and had to arrest him and take him to jail. And later on that evening, it was after dark, Steve was sitting on the side of old Highway 51 observing the traffic down there, and this guy had gotten out of the jail in the meantime and had gotten in a different vehicle and came and rammed Steve's car from the rear. And he didn't know what had happened. He got on the radio and called Brookhaven to say that I've been involved in an accident, need a supervisor over here. In the meantime, the guy jumped out of the car and walked up back to him and started shooting him while he was still sitting in the car. Steve was able to draw his Magnum and fire and hit the guy and killed him. He killed the guy Steve didn't die right then, but he did die on the way to the hospital. So even though that wasn't an immediate after the traffic stop, it was a result of a traffic stop. And then in 1987, Bruce Ladner down on the coast stopped this car, and one thing led to another, and they shot him, and he was able to get to a hospital. Somebody picked him up and carried him to the hospital, but he died a couple of days later as a result of that. So those are things, it can be a dangerous job, obviously, and you've always heard the old saying, when law enforcement, that officer leaves home in the morning or whenever he leaves home, he never knows if he's going to come back.
Trained to be the very best across the USA. 1 in 3 who dare to be wear the blue and gray.
I worked as FBI task force, featured task force that involved executing warrants on violent offenders as rapers, murderers, kidnappers, bank robbers, and one particular incident when the Project Guarantee, well, it wasn't robbed, but I think one of the presidents at some of the Project Guarantee was kidnapped, and we worked that detail where the guy was actually shot on Old Canton Road, just south of the county line. That was a little hairy. The manhunts at Parchman, the stabbings at Parchman, especially when the officer got stabbed there, and that long process of interviewing the inmates and the tedious journey of going to court and testifying, and that made me think about, well, what did you really get into? Going to autopsies of inmates that was killed at Parchman. That was the gamut that I not necessarily think would have occurred just being a little trooper on the road writing tickets. Yeah, but there's other facets that we get involved in as we do what we do. Yeah, that lead you from one thing to another.
This song is your salute across the USA. We owe so much to you, blue and gray.
It was a person between here and Meridian, one of the towns over there close to the other side of Morton. What's the town over Forest, near Forest. He had barricaded himself and said he wasn't coming out unless he come out shooting. Well, they called the highway patrol to go get him out. There's a bunch of us went over there, and he come out. And I never will forget George James. He was from down at Magnolia, Mississippi. He was standing right over here to my left, and we were all standing out there waiting for the band to come out. And when of course he come out shooting, and he hit George James's arm, and that bullet went down and messed his arm up. But I mean, things like that, so close, stands out in my mind a lot.
'Cause there are those who lost their lives when they gave their all, just to wear the blue and gray of the highway patrol.
Working 27 South, just south of the Big Black. We was working an 18-wheeler accident. The road had been blocked for a while, and had a little, I think it was something like a Chevette, a little 6-cylinder vehicle. Well, anyway, he come through. The driver was had some headlights out, just had some violation, minor violation, and I asked him to pull over to the side. Once I walked over to the side, I saw where he had a beer can in there. That beer can turned into a high-speed chase, a haul about 45 miles an hour, but because the vehicle was only running on probably about 3 of the cylinders. I always tell anybody of the 6 cylinders. But he ended up chasing him down to his home there, which is located there on 6th, on 27. And it turned into a standoff where when I went to arrest him, the brothers came out and said, hey, look, you the same one that harassed me as I came through there. So we had one standing in the shadows with what appeared to be a long gun, and the other one was standing out there with a 9mm, saying that you wasn't going to take the brother anywhere. Everything turned out fine. I called for backup. Backup responded, but my nearest unit was at up in Vicksburg at Highway 27 and Highway 80. So those 10, 15 minutes seemed like forever.
My partner at that time, Carlton Hayes, went on to be deputy commissioner. Of course, when you're partners, you really don't work together. You just change the car out. Well, we were changing ours out, and I believe Carlton said, do you mind if I go pick something up real quick before I carry you home? I said, no, go ahead. And he had to go to Como, and while we were on the interstate, we picked up a car on radar running about 40 miles an hour. I said, I think they may be drinking. I said, hey, get behind them. So he crossed me and we got behind one. All of a sudden, they just went up to 80 miles an hour. And they get back down to 40. Then back up to 80. Back down to 40. Did it 3 or 4 times. And of course, you still got your dry and your wet counties. Well, he was a fast approaching Tate County, which was dry. Panola County was wet. And they moved on into Tate County because about 3 to 5 miles, from where we spotted him. And Carlton pulled him over. Well, he was driving a little small station wagon. And when he walked up there, I stayed in the vehicle. Kept my eye on the vehicle, get out if I had to, because I didn't see but one person. Well, then I saw Carlton reach in and grab the keys, and I saw a head pop up. And I said, oh, there's 2 people in there. So I can go up on the right-hand side. And, of course, he's on the driver's side. I'm on the passenger side. There's a female in there with him. She don't have any clothes on. The driver doesn't have any clothes on. And Carlton and I kind of figured out why we were having the 40 and the 80 miles an hour while we were going down the highway.
I was laying at home in the bed asleep one night and the phone rang. And my wife answered it and she said, yeah, he's right here. She passed me the phone and a voice on the other end of the phone said, is this Captain Claiborne? I said, it is. He said, this is Ronnie Musgrove and I want to talk to you a minute. I said, who? He said, Ronnie Musgrove, the governor of the state of Mississippi. I said, and at the time I had some friends that would really pull a prank on a guy, so like Tony Thornton and 2 or 3 more of them. And I said, I don't know which one of y'all this is, but quit playing on the phone. I got to get up and go to work in the morning. I got to be back in Jackson in the morning. And then he said, no, this is Ronnie Musgrove. And I said, yeah, and I'm Benedict Arnold, and hung the phone up. So the phone rang right back. And when the phone rang the next time, the voice on the other end was Rusty Barnes. And I knew Rusty, I trained Rusty. He came through one of the classes that I tacked. Never lost contact with him and knew his voice on first hearing it on the phone. And he said, hey, Claiborne. I said, hey, Rusty, how you doing? He said, this Rusty. He said, I'm with the governor. That is the governor that want to talk to you on the phone. I said, oh, crap. Well, put him back on the phone. So he gives the phone back to him and he calls me and asks me, would I mind filling the colonel slot on an interim basis until he gets a chance to get things settled and do some background and research and maybe interview a few people for the job. And I said, well, yes, sir, I'll do that. He said, we'll be in my office at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the rest of the story, pretty, as they say, is history.
Commissioner Giles Chrysler called me, and head investigator J.D. Gardner, and said, Slick, you're already on staff, you're 821, we need you to help us with the Martin Luther King March. There'll be a number of consecutive days. you can pick part of your detail, and we'll pick part. Try to get the boys that were hanging there with us, do a good job, not be wanting to go home. So we centered it down to about 29 full-time party for the march. The rest of the districts came and reinforced us, and then they went back to the home station as they went through. We were walking on the highway, and you know very well there were 18-wheelers with side mirrors. We had 2 or 3 close calls. So just before arriving in Grenada, we had a government sedan drive up, and Lynn Smith, former FBI agent, retired, and incidentally he's passed away today, and myself actually stayed with the march full time. So this government sedan drove up, and it was Lynn's time to challenge the stranger approaching the march. When he came back, he introduced me to this distinguished gentleman from Washington, and it so happened it was John Doe, director of the Civil Rights Division of the FBI, something new. So I immediately thought about it in the sense that Colonel Birdsong would, since he wasn't standing there. And I said, Mr. Doe, we welcome you to Mississippi. We have a signed timetable on this march. We're not going to alter the route and go in another direction. And my job and Lynn's job is to keep it within the safety limits. And we look forward to getting this entire group to Jackson, Mississippi. That's what their mission was, and that's what we wanted to do, and hurry up and get back in our regular routine work. So the march moved on, and a truck came pretty close to one of the marchers. And when we arrived in Grenada, Mr. Doyle said, Ables, I believe we need to fingerprint and photograph these people. I said, well, it'd be for your benefit in case someone gets hurt. You can notify the next of kin. Well, it sure helped us then. We knew who they were and what they were and all that. And as the march moved on south to Greenwood, around the loop at Greenwood, through Morgan City, through Belzona, Yazoo City, we chose a lesser traffic route rather than being on the busy road. We arrived in Jackson. Commissioner Chrysler turned to me and he says, I want you to head up a detail of men for pyrotechnics in case the crowd might get out of hand. I had my fingers crossed. He had his fingers crossed. We had no problems. The people acted as Mississippians always do under times of stress, and with full cooperation, we got the detail behind us. A day or two later, we were told that a group had gone to a historical city of Natchez, and they certainly didn't want those old antebellum homes to be damaged in any way. We took a skeleton crew down there and safeguarded those old historical dwellings, and we put the heat on the 2 that was really the troublemakers, and they were tracked through Louisiana, through the Louisiana Highway Patrol, and they boarded a United Freight Company ship in New Orleans to go back to Cuba. And Mississippi and Louisiana was glad they went back to Cuba. Yes, sir.
Sheriff Mike McKee was killed in the county that I was in about 9 o'clock on August 6, 1997. Just a typical day. He was talking on the radio, and he was out there checking on one of his informants who had practically went wild because some people had beat him up because he was trying to play police. And they had a big drug roundup, so they beat him up, and he went back home to get his shotgun to go back and kill those gentlemen. But before he could do that, him and his daddy got in a tussle, and he shot his daddy. And his mama had cancer real bad. She couldn't walk 5 feet without oxygen tank. And so when I got the call, I was at the sheriff's office, getting ready to go eat supper about 9 o'clock. He called for the ambulance to come out to the scene. Well, I knew where the gentleman used to live. I didn't know he had moved across the road, but he lived on the left-hand side versus the right-hand side. So I told him, along with the DeKalb Police Department officer, he was out there near. He said, I'll lead him. I said, well, I'm coming out there 2 hours. If I get there first, I'll just lead him in. And as I was leading them, I had a crowd of people behind me, with the ambulance. But I went right where he used to live. That would save my life. He went left because he knew where they lived. And in the process of me going right and going down there and turning around and find out where he really lived, the shooting occurred. The sheriff was shot. The gentleman shot the sheriff, and that police officer drove up. He had shot the police officer 4 times. And as I was coming down the road with all these people behind me, I saw somebody running toward me. It still didn't dawn on me what was going on. I saw a blue-looking object coming toward me, and he was flagging me to stop, but he was shot. And he said, he shot me, man. He shot me, man. I said, who shot you? He went on to tell me about the guy that shot him. And he said, the sheriff is laying down there dead. I said, dead? I said, I don't think so. I don't believe he's dead. I'm going out. He said, no, don't you go, don't you go. I said, I got to go down and see if he's alive. And of course, like I said, where he at? He said, he pointed right by where we was. I just grabbed him. We all went over the ditch, trying to get cover. And after I did that, I got him in the ambulance. And all I had to help me was a sheriff deputy who had been on 1 week in law enforcement. He had never been to school. I had a police officer who had just came back from having a stroke. And then I had a new policeman who was scared to death. So I put my bulletproof vest on and I crawled down. And I had another gentleman who was not even an officer. He was crawling with me. And the first thing I did, I crawled up on the body of the gentleman that did the shooting. But the gentleman had a twin brother. I thought he had killed his twin brother. I wasn't sure because nobody told me about what the twin brother was. I didn't know if it was him or his twin brother. And I tell how he died, because he died running. And I could see the sheriff laying down up in the yard. So I crawled, and as I crawled up on that body, to make sure, I went on and handcuffed him. Handcuffed his hand behind me just in case, because I couldn't tell whether he shot or not. I handcuffed him behind, then I crawled on up to where the sheriff was. And it could have been just me, but I thought the sheriff was trying to tell me something. His mouth flew open, and he never did go back. I saw he was shot in the neck, and he was shot in the chest with the shotgun. And I seen where he was shot through the car. And the mama was trying to tell me there's another officer there at the scene. I said, another officer? I said, can't be, because I got the roadblock. She said, yeah, there's another officer there. But my son shot the sheriff, and he shot his dad. His dad laying in there. So I went in, I saw his daddy was talking, he was conscious. He was laying down, he was shot in the shoulder. He shot through a wall and shot his daddy. So at that time, I got back out and I got the lady, while I was standing there talking to her, something happened on the outside, and I turned around real fast when I knocked her out with my gun. When I turned so fast to hit her. And because with her being sick, it didn't take much to knock her out, so I had no more correspondence with what was going on there. Because everybody else was dead and the other officers was in the ambulance. So after I got all of them together and I found out that I got a look at the guy and I realized he was the shooter. So at that time, by that time I had the media and everybody, and my nearest trooper help. There was no other county help or city help available, but my nearest trooper help was about 105 miles from there. So I had to go get all this stuff together and try to get the scene secured for them to come in and check it out and also neutralize what was going on. Again, this was in the blind. It was just a very stressful night.
We're always available. We're available to back up local jurisdictions. Up until the mid-70s, it required a governor's proclamation to go out and assist a situation in a county. Thankfully today, the sheriff or any jurisdiction that needs the backup of the highway patrol can do so with a request, and then the patrol can respond immediately. I mean, our SWAT teams and our SOG teams, and I mean, it's just never ending, the things that this agency does that many people do not realize. When you got a private prison that has a riot, who do they call on? The Department of Public Safety and the SOG team, and they're some of the first on the scene to help restore order to a penitentiary that houses people from other countries.
And again, the way our people handle themselves. I mean, we're known all over the nation as one of the best shooters in the world. We've got the National Association, National Rifle Association Championship by individuals 8 and 10 and 12 times, teams 6 and 8 times, and many of those times were on my watch, and it was real pleasing for me as chief or commissioner to stand by our great shooters, which really exhibited what this agency does. We're the best of the best. There's not many states that can match the Mississippi Highway Patrol.
I had a Catholic priest that rode with me a couple of nights, and I was bringing him back to the church one morning about 1:30 on I-10, and there was a subject walking down the side of the interstate with just a pair of shorts on. And I told the Reverend, I said, let me see what his problem is. So I pulled up behind him and turned the blue lights on, and he stopped, and I opened the door and rolled the window down. I opened the door and stepped out and said, I need to talk to you just a minute. Well, I sit back in the car, because like I said, all he had on was a pair of shorts. He walked up to the window, and I says, what are you doing out here? He said, well, sir, and everything was sir, that I got rolled in New Orleans, and I'm trying to get back to Pensacola, Florida, the Naval Air Station. He was a cadet in the Navy down there in flight school. And I found that out a little bit later, and I said, is that right? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, that's a pretty good story, but I got one that's a little bit better than yours there. And I turned the inside light on. I said, you see this man over here? Of course, the priest had on his black shirt and pants and the white collar. I said, I stopped him about 30 minutes ago walking down the highway, and he's trying to tell me he's a Catholic priest. So I'm on the way to jail with him, so you might as well get in too. But I checked his story, and he was a naval aviator down there, and I took him over to Ocean Springs and bought him a Greyhound bus ticket back to Florida. But you got the bad side and the good side of it. So, but like I say, we could go with stories of that for days.
I got called to an incident on I-10 and 49 where a truck that was hauling tigers straight from the jungles to the zoo. And as I came up on the scene, I don't know what I was thinking about. I was just thinking about them being tame. I really wasn't even thinking. And as I was walking, there was a tiger walking toward me, and a trooper pulled up and tried to, I couldn't read his lips because there's a lot of wind in the air, and we was on the exit. He was telling me to get back in the car there, wow. And I said, what? And I kept saying, what? And by that time, the tiger started after me, and another trooper drove up and drove between me and the tiger hit his car. And he said, he was trying to take the tiger wild. Well, I just dived through the window there with my shotgun. And as we was getting ready to pull off, we was sitting there, the tiger came up and ran up on the door with both feet. So I took my shotgun, gonna try to push him off. He took the feet and just knocked the shotgun out of my hand. I told him, just go ahead and sit there as long as you want to there.
I used to have to work Highway 61, Highway 8, and Highway 1. So this particular day I was working Highway 1. I was over there by Rosedale, and a man from Illinois came down through. He was doing about 90-something miles an hour. And I put on a blue light and siren, I stopped him. And just as I was approaching the car, he got out. So I explained to him who I were, and I was writing him a citation for speeding. And he looked out across the field and he saw a lot of cotton. And he said, boy, you know there's plenty of cotton down here for y'all, don't you? And I was steady writing a ticket. He said, boy, I'm talking to you. And I stopped writing the ticket and I said, sir, I said, my name is either, at the time we were called patrolman manual, or just Mr. Manual, or just plain manual. And I went back to writing the ticket citation. He said, boy, I sure wish I had plenty of y'all so I could raise cotton like this. And when he said that, I drew my pistol and slapped him upside the head.
The patrol is, it's not a job. It's a profession. It's a way of life. It's something that I can talk about it. And somebody that finished that patrol school can talk about it. They may even talk about it into a negative sense with me, but nobody else is going to talk about it to me, and may not stand up for it, because I'm a part of it, and always will be. And when you put that badge on, you're family, and you don't talk about family unless you are family.
It's a rewarding job if you like helping people. That's one of my big things. I always like to help people or treat people like I want to be treated. I never really had a problem through my career on the patrol. And that's a saying my mother always used to tell me. If you treat people like you want to be treated, you won't have any problem.
It's something that you find out that you want to be. And they know how close, and especially the highway patrol, how close that family is. And like I said, we've got troopers that argue with each other. It's just natural. But let something happen, and that family comes together. And even our retirees, they're still part of our family. Once a state trooper, always a state trooper. That's what I've always said.
Well, you know, all of us that do that type of work, and it was the job that I truly love the most in law enforcement, we do that from an unselfish standpoint. We really are motivated by helping other people. At the end of all of the training, of all of the difficult times you go through and not being paid enough and being away from your home, if you look and say, why do you do that? You do that so you can help someone, so that at some point in life you might be able to put yourself between a citizen in harm's way. And so it's so critical that we know to keep the best of the best that we've got to be able to provide the resources that the Highway Patrol needs to continue the great work that they do and have done for 75 years.
You stand for what is true. You've more than paid your dues. Our lives depend